Hey now, welcome back to Lone Star Mini Restoration. Today I am looking at removing just one of the rear arches. So what I plan to do is I plan to show on camera what I am going to do, the work that I'm going to be doing. Then I'm going to turn the camera off and I will do the work, and then I'll come back and show the finished product. But before I show you what I'm about to do, I just wanted to give a shout out to my daughter's friends. I know that there's a few of you out there that tune in from time to time. If you really like the Classic Mini, I will make you a promise. I plan to have this guy complete before Deborah graduates. So that gives me almost 2 years. Now I know it's a ways out, but if you stay in touch from time to time, I will make the promise that either she or I will teach you to drive a standard manual transmission on this Classic Mini. Now, if you already know how to drive, no big deal. You can still drive it if you want. I will let you drive this Mini because when she's finished, she will be beautiful. Okay, inside the car, the rear bench is attached to the rear arch through this flange right here. Now, this flange, honestly, this looks like the thinnest metal I have seen on the car. I mean, it's not like rusted out. This is not rusted, but it is extremely thin. So rather than trying to drill these spot welds out, I'm going to cut the arch off right along that line, right along the edge of the flange for the bench. I'm going to cut it all the way down, and then over here on the companion bin, I'm going to just cut that out too. I'm going to cut along this flange here, horizontally and vertically. Then I'm going to come back and clean that up and try to grind off the remnant metal from the arch, but I want to keep this flange intact. So that's my first thing that I'm going to do, is I'm going to cut that off and separate it from the companion bin and the bench. The first thing that I've done before I get started, my rotisserie is attached to the top of the arch right there with a big old bolt, nut and bolt. So what I have done, just as a precaution, I've cut a piece of wood to size that fits between the upper bench shelf and the rotisserie. That way when I release that bolt, when the car is upside down, hopefully that'll give it a little bit of support, and the rotisserie support brackets won't dip. Now I'm not too worried about it because I've got support all over the place. This center beam goes down to the seat belts, up to the rotisserie. That in and of itself will probably hold it sufficiently, and I'm not going to undo the other side. I'm only going to do one at a time. But just as a safety measure, I've wedged a piece of wood in there just to keep that separation, hopefully to keep that separation exactly the same when I put the new one on. Before I go any further, let me capture what I've done to date on film. As I'm removing the right rear arch over here, man, it was very tedious because before I even started cutting, I inspected, I looked over everything, and I realized that the metal that is there is very thin, very fragile, and so good grief, it was painful, but I did it. Let me show you what I've done. So here's the metal that came off the car. It's basically all from the rear arch. Well, okay, here's the aft bracket that mounts to the boot floor. I will probably actually remove that and I will salvage it. Even though I have the new one, I will salvage that for maybe use at some point in the future. Okay, as you can see, the rear arch is out, the right rear arch, and all the metal surfaces have been, basically what I did was, even though this is like extremely thin and flimsy, I was very careful. I took the grinder. In fact, I like the handheld, the little grinder that I use. I've learned to like that much better. I can control it better. But I have cleaned off this edge all the way around. And you can see, I don't think that's from my, that's not from my cleaning. A lot of this is like that. So, you know, this is obviously going to have to be a little bit repaired. Up here, that's going to have to be repaired. But now this section from here to here is probably going to be removed because I'm replacing this section of the quarter panel. So this will get cut out. So I wasn't as concerned about this. But all down here is all cleaned up. Now this is new boot floor. So that's good. I'll just have to clean up any primer or whatever I have on there. This is the back inside edge of the companion bin. Yes, I salvaged it. Even though I'm replacing the companion bins, I could have cut that off, but I wanted it for a reference point. So I was very meticulous in removing the arch from this panel, and I did a fairly good job. Now it's kind of cleaned up. The other very tricky part was the back bench, the backrest of the bench. This metal, I could tell, was very thin to begin with. It was very thin, but I just took my time, a little bit added patience, and I managed it. Now, a lot of these cracks, like here, those were there. There were already breaks in the panel. Now, I did make one mistake. I have corrected it. I put when I was using the bigger cutoff wheel, the sandy disc, I went through there. I made a slot right into the back panel. But I went back with my welder and I filled that up. So that is now corrected. As far as all this, it's extremely thin. I'm not sure how, I don't know if I have the expertise yet to plug weld that, but I'm going to refit everything and I'm going to do that now and show that on camera. Okay, so what I've done is I have used my jig as my locating attach point, and that is now bolted back down. I have then aligned the arch with the existing quarter panel arch, and you can see the fit, I think, is pretty doggone good, right? I mean, I'm just going to take some clamps and I'm going to pull that in. Now, one thing I've noticed is that the boot flange is not even with the bottom, because it's upside down, with the bottom of the arch flange. But I think that's okay, because I know the boot is located based on my attach points that I've had early on. So that's located, but the fitment of the arch is pretty good. Of course, now I don't have enough clamps, but I'll use what I have. I'll clamp it together. The other thing that I wanted to do was I pulled out this panel that goes in here, and it's like a puzzle. I had to figure out where it goes, but first of all, I had to figure out if this, let's see, if this lip here on this panel, let me pull it out again. I had to figure out if this lip overlaps the arch or goes under it. And my guess is that it overlaps it for multiple reasons. Let me get it back in here. Trying to hold the camera and do this one-handed is a bit challenging. All right, so it's a good fit here, even though I'm replacing this, but I believe it overlaps, because if it did not overlap, then there would be a seam right there for water to get into the system. So the fact that it overlaps, and it's also a nice fit with this cut here, but now there's a, you know, maybe I need to take some pliers and pull that in and close that gap right there, because that's kind of ugly. But I believe it does overlap. And then the other curiosity, and because I don't remember this when I took it all apart, was now you've got this panel here has a vertical flange right on this edge. There's a flange on the boot, a vertical flange here, but then there's the companion bin. So I believe that this is going to be a sandwiched assembly of 3 panels: boot, companion bin, and then this panel. How I'm going to do that, how I'm going to, maybe I can spot weld 2 of them and then plug weld the third. I don't know yet. I've got to figure that out. But all in all, I think it's coming along well. Okay, and the next thing that I did was I took a white paint marker and I traced where this flange is on the back bench, where it gets spot welded or plug welded to the arch. I traced it so that I can remove the E-coating. Already it's a pretty good fit. I mean, as you can see that, it's actually a nice fit. And I also traced the flange on the companion bin. So I'll grind that E-coat away. Oh, and speaking of E-coat, if you come out here, this has me a little concerned. Let me put some light on it so the camera will pick it up better. This is how I received my arch. Look at all this. I don't think that looks good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my blast booth, and I am going to take the E-coat off. I won't take it off everywhere, because everywhere else looks decent. But I am going to strip this area right here, this whole area, and then prime it, because that doesn't look good. This is the bracket that goes on the inside. Front, and it mounts to the wheel arch and also to the back bench and also to the boot floor. This is the panel that arrived, and look, it's got a little bit of rust on it. I've got to blast it again, but this panel arrived with E-coating and it was all bubbling up. So I blasted it, but it's been sitting quite a while, and that's probably sweat. That's probably where I dripped sweat on it. So I've got to finish that, and then this also came out. This was the bracket for the seat belt, and you can see here I had to cut it away, and then I cleaned it up a little, and so it looks like it's a little flimsy in this area, but I think it's still good. I think it's still usable. I am going to clean it up some more. I'll blast it, and then I'll also refinish this. I'll put some 2K primer on it. So really, I need to mark where this goes and maybe even do a little spot welding before I move on. All right, real quick, I wanted to show, I used the clamps to pull the arch into the boot floor. And here you can see how the flange on the boot floor is not level with the flange on the arch. But I think I'm in the right place. So now, if you run along the edge all the way, it's nice and tight. Even up here, it's not bad. I mean, even, let's see, where's it out on the camera? I can't see it. Even here where the companion bin slides in, even there, that assembly of 3 panels is not bad. I clamped this together. I've got this bolted in place. I've got these 2 guys bolted in place, locating the boot floor. So I'm trying to line up this edge as best I can, but I do realize that there's give in the quarter panel. And when I just barely put a little pressure on that, I can clamp that up beautifully, like right there. So I don't think that's an issue. I think I'm good to go there. And remember, this I'm getting rid of, so I'm not even worried about that. So I will probably spot weld all the way in up to about this area. I may not do this area yet because I don't know what's going to happen here where the companion bin slides in. So I'm going to save that for later until I figure it out. But I think, all in all, I think it's coming together. Oh yeah, I wanted to show my screw up. This is where I took a 1-inch disc like this, steel disc, and I put it in the hole that was there, kind of like that hole there. I put it in the hole and then I started trying to work it. Well, yeah, it went from empty hole to worse to, horrible. It's not quite complete yet. I still have a few little pinholes to cover up, but I have almost corrected the horrible mistake that I've made. I wanted to show that because that was a bear. On this video, all I wanted to do is I wanted to show what I was doing. I wanted to show the kind of the cleanup job that I did, and then the initial check fit of the new arch and the plan of action. What I will do now is I will probably take the new arch and I will grind away the E-coat everywhere it's going to be spot welded, and the next video will really probably be spot welding everything. Yeah, so thanks for joining in the journey, and bye just now.